very good morning. You're watching News 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and what a start to this Wednesday morning. It's another day and another tariff announcement. That's right, Donald Trump has announced a 25% reciprocal tariff, and India's auto industry as well as pharma industry could likely get impacted. So we'll get you all the market action here over the next 1 hour or so. Also on the show, there has been a U-turn, so to speak, in Tesla's India plans that got scuttled last year. It looks like finally Tesla would be driving into India. What could be Elon Musk's motive to reconsider India as a market? Is it his meeting with Prime Minister Modi last week, or the slowdown in China and US when it comes to Tesla cars? We'll discuss that with Dilip Chinoy. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, let's look at the headlines. Did the United States interfere in India's elections? Donald Trump justifies the action of DOGE that scrapped a $21 million funding program allocated for India's voter turnout. BJP's Amit Malvia calls it external interference with India's elections, questions who gained, and draws links to George Soros and the Congress. And a day after Tesla posted 13 job roles in India, reports now indicate that Elon Musk-led EV maker is looking for land to make Tesla cars in India. Maharashtra reported to be the first choice, even as Tesla looks for showroom spaces in Delhi's Aerocity and Mumbai's BKC. So is Tesla finally coming to India? We discuss on the show. And Elon Musk's ChatGPT rival Grok 3 is set to launch anytime now. The new model is stated to offer 10 times the computing power of its predecessor, powered by xAI's Colossus supercomputer, which reportedly houses over 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs. Markets in India on Tuesday recovered sharply as FIIs turned net buyers after a long time, pumping in almost 4,800 crore rupees as Bharti Enterprises initiated a block deal by liquidating family stake. But with Trump's new announcement of 25% tariff on auto and pharma, will markets see another day of blood loss? We'll soon discover. Meanwhile, US Securities and Exchange Commission seeks India's help in investigating Gautam and Sagar Adani over alleged securities fraud and a $265 million bribery scheme. During high-level talks between Prime Minister Modi and Qatar's Amir, Shekh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Qatar has committed to invest $10 billion in India through both FDI and FII routes. Manufacturing, infrastructure, technology, hospitality and logistics emerge as preferred investment sectors. Meanwhile, unemployment rate, especially urban unemployment in India, continues to stick at 6.4% for the December-ended quarter, remaining flat with no improvement in India's job market. Labour force participation also stays stable at 50.4%. On the brighter side though, female joblessness dips. With competition emerging from ride-hailing platforms like Rapido, Uber India changes its auto rickshaw ride service. No more commissions from auto drivers and cash-only rides now implemented. And the 300-odd trainees that were laid off by Infosys on its Mysuru campus now have more time to prepare as the IT major pushes the assessment by another 1 week in light of protests. Days after the US Department of Government Efficiency, led by billionaire and Tesla chief Elon Musk, scrapped a $21 million grant meant to boost reportedly voter turnout in India. President Donald Trump defended the decision and questioned why US taxpayer money was being used for this initiative. Speaking in Florida, Trump criticized the spending, pointing out India's high tariffs and economic strength, saying, "Why are we giving $21 million to India? What about voter turnout here?" Unquote. The funding cuts was part of a broader effort to reduce what the department called excessive foreign assistance. Other programs on the block included a $29 million grant for political reforms in Bangladesh and $39 million for governance and conservation projects in Nepal. Meanwhile, ruling BJP termed the now cancelled funding external interference in India's electoral process. Let's listen in to what Donald Trump said.
Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes.
Meanwhile, BJP's Amit Malvia is questioning who gained from this $21 million infusion into voter turnout and draws linkages to George Soros and the Congress party. But moving on now is Tesla finally driving into India. New developments a week after Prime Minister Modi's US visit, where it wasn't just Donald Trump but Elon Musk also who Prime Minister Modi met. Now, Tesla's India plans have been jittery for about a year now, but this time it seems Elon Musk may have turned the steering in favor of India, and his EV runs out of power in China and the US. So let's try and look at the journey so far. What exactly has the journey of Tesla's ride into India thus far been? Let's look at what really happened last year. Well, in 2024, India first rolled out what many refer to as the red carpet for Tesla's entry into the country. Now, after that, the government revised the EV duty for electric vehicles, the fully built electric vehicles, to 15% to aid, reportedly, Tesla as one of the lead beneficiaries. Thereon, the government policy also said that for this 15% duty, a minimum investment commitment of about $500 million must be made for EV companies to explore this lower duty. Now, government had in that policy capped imported cars coming into India to a maximum of 8,000 units per year. Now, Elon Musk was planning to visit India, but his plans got cancelled at the last minute when he cited what he referred to as heavy Tesla obligations back home. Now, what is recharging his plans at the moment? Well, Tesla just a day ago posted as many as 13 job roles in India on LinkedIn. These job roles were across Mumbai and Delhi. Now, this development, as I told you, is coming just a week after Prime Minister Modi's US visits. Now, reports are also indicating that Tesla is scouting for showroom space in Delhi's Aerocity and Mumbai's BKC. These seem to be the shortlisted locations for Tesla's showroom, which means that perhaps Tesla could first be driving its fully built cars into India before making in India. But staying with its Make in India plans, reports are now also indicating that Maharashtra seems to be the front runner for a Tesla factory to come in. Now, what is possibly prompting this change of heart by Elon Musk? Well, number one, India's EV market is still nascent and the upside seems fairly high potential. India has sold just about 100,000 electric vehicle units in the year 2024. Meanwhile, the US is losing steam on its electric vehicles as Donald Trump now seems to be favoring the internal combustion engines or ICE technology as opposed to electric vehicles. At the same time, China, which is the largest EV market in the world, has sold in comparison as many as 1.1 crore EVs in 2024. Compare 1.1 crore EVs in China to just about 1 lakh EVs in India. But the race in China is largely being led by BYD, and Tesla may find it hard to compete. And finally, there are certain questions which remain unanswered, which we will try and address over the next few minutes here. Will Tesla build a cheaper car for India? There were talks that Tesla will look at a 20,000 US dollar equivalent of an India-only model. Will that plan continue? Now, will India-made Tesla cars attract Trump tariffs? That's again something that we'll want to explore, that if Tesla comes to India and makes in India and exports these cars made in India to the US, is the tariff threat going to loom large? And finally, will Musk act as a tariff negotiation to sweeten its own Tesla deal? And finally, will India once again revise its EV policy for foreign players who want to come in? Let's discuss all this and more with Dilip Chinoy, Chairman of India Battery Swapping Association. Mr. Chinoy, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this very important day. I want to first understand from you, does it seem this time around that Elon Musk is a lot clearer on his India plans than he was last year?
Good morning, Karthik. And I think, yes, he is much clearer on his India plans for two reasons. Actually, in March 2024, when this whole manufacturing program was announced, there were multiple different moving parts to this. The first one was the import duty. The second one was the investment. Third was the phased manufacturing program. And more importantly, the whole program, the whole 1 year and 3 year plan, what would constitute local content, etc. So those various aspects were not clear at that point of time. And it was not clear whether these would be actually explained and amplified and clarified before the elections were over or post the elections. And therefore, I think he took a strategic pause in looking at his India plans. And of course, as you mentioned in your introduction to this piece, there were different types of challenges that Tesla was facing both in China and in the domestic market. So I think for him now, he has more clarity in the future of Tesla and his approach to India.
And I can't help but ask you about tariffs, Mr. Chinoy. If Tesla does decide to make in India and then use the India-made cars and export them to his home market, which is the US, why would Trump do that in the first place when there is a tariff war waging in the world, prompted by none other than Donald Trump himself?
Okay, so I think it's very important to read the fine print in the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. I think while the whole assertion by public assertion by President Trump is that we will put reciprocal tariffs, right? So if you have tariff X for American goods in India, the same tariff will apply to the Indian goods exported to the US. But at the same time, there has been a kind of announcement of kind of an FTA between US and India. And if you see the follow-up statements made by Minister Goel, I think he has actually said that there could be separate carve-outs within the FTA with respect to the US, and therefore for those areas which may have reduced rates of duty for the US under the FTA, they may not attract the reciprocal tariff from the US side. So, and if you look at it, technology and alternate energy especially is a great element of the trust framework between the US and India. So I think you're going to see some specific actions being taken here to promote manufacturing, EV manufacturing in India. And also, you must understand that while you have talked about the 1 lakh EVs sold, but if you look at the percentage of EVs sold as a percentage of the total vehicles sold, the highest number is in the in the luxury category.
That's right.
And that is where Tesla actually comes in, and therefore that number itself is a very attractive number for any manufacturer around the world to look at India. And of course, he's chosen a strategy to focus on 2 cities, right? Which is also a very good strategy. He can then go to the 3rd city. It may be Ahmedabad, because that's also a large market for such cars.
All right. So from the things that you just mentioned, Mr. Chinoy, there are two things, and I want to come to them one by one. Number one, on the reciprocal tariffs and whether or not they will impact India's auto exports. But now this is something that Minister Piyush Goyal mentioned 2 days back. But what is emerging today in the news is that there is going to be a reciprocal tariff of 25% on auto components and pharmaceuticals, and this is something that President Donald Trump has announced would be implemented on the 2nd of April. So on the tariff part, there continues to be this confusion that will these tariffs be restricted to target countries like Mexico, Canada and China only, or will India's auto components industry also get impacted by the 25% tariff?
Well, I think, there are two aspects to this. The first thing is really it is addressing the FTAs that the US had and the whole deal that they had with the countries that you mentioned. I think India is a different category. And if you look at the pharmaceutical sector, for instance, one of the discussions and outcomes during the President Trump and Prime Minister Modi discussion was that India would provide key APIs and other key intermediates to the US pharma industry to enable them to look at an alternate source. So I think there is something very different going on in the pharma sector between India and the US. The second thing on components, I believe a lot of the auto components also are made by American firms based in India, as well as Indian firms who are, sole or primary contractors or primary tier one suppliers to the OEMs in the US. And while the aftermarket is a separate issue, but I think there will be an equal kind of a pressure from the OEs in the US to actually ensure that they are not made uncompetitive by taxing their supply chains and their sourcing requirements from India.
All right. And on the second point that you had previously mentioned, Mr. Chinoy, that the luxury EV market in India is the one where the numbers are actually coming in high numbers from. On that front, does it make sense now for Elon Musk to try and build a make in India, make for India cheaper Tesla vehicle? Or do you think in his strategic interest, it makes sense to go after the high paying customers and just import the Model 3 for the time being?
That depends on Tesla's global strategy. Because if Tesla wants to expand, if they want to compete, and you said that BYD is the largest player in China. Yeah. BYD has a range of models, right? From entry-level models to high-end models, from sedans to SUVs, etc. And if Tesla wants to become a full, complete from total entry-level to the upper-end car manufacturer, other than the particular models they have, then as a company, they have to look at diversifying. And what best to look at entry-level cars here in India. Hyundai also actually did this many years ago, where they looked at the small car production in India, and they used to export their small cars out from India to Europe, taking advantage of agreement that Korea and Hyundai had with Europe. And as the numbers started increasing and as the Indian market increased, Hyundai could not expand capacity to meet the local demand, so that actually took a hit. But you would see a very different strategy from Tesla, depending on how important this segment is in the overall portfolio of Elon Musk. And if he's looking at expanding his range, then it makes sense to actually locate kind of a different entry-level or a mid-level vehicle manufactured in India for the world.
Okay, and I want to understand from you the contours of the electric mobility policy that the government had launched last year. Now, as per my understanding and from what I remember, Mr. Chinoy, a foreign player wanting to enter India's EV market will be given a concession of just 15% duty if the car is priced above $35,000. As many as only 18,000 units of a car can be imported into India and sold in India, and a minimum commitment of $500 million must be made by the foreign player who wants to manufacture cars in India. Do these contours still hold true, or do you expect there's going to be some revision in the policy to further sweeten the deal for Tesla and perhaps potential competitors of Tesla to also come into the India market?
I think that since March 24, when this policy was announced, this has not really taken off as much as the PLI and the other aspects of the electric mobility plan have taken off. But, I think there are also 25% localization targets within 3 years and 50% within 5 years, the contours of which were not clear at the time when it was announced when Tesla was coming to India. And therefore, you will see some clarity come here. And I don't think that the overall contours would be dramatically changed going forward. And I believe that the numbers that they have talked about, you see, it's 40,000 EVs at the concessional duty over 5 years, provided that they invest 500 million. Now, for him as a market entry strategy to test the market and to see whether his model actually takes off in India, it's enough of an incentive there. Would that 15% come down? I don't think at this point of time. But let's see. There's, as the discussions go on, and is there a special carve out for US firms or something? We have to wait and watch. Everything will be clear in September, because I think President Trump has said that, we don't want any delay. We want the contours of the US-India trade side to be clear by end August. Right.
So I want to also, I can't resist but ask you that, do you think there is a potential that Elon Musk will want to sort of leverage his proximity to President Donald Trump and try and find a sweeter deal for his Tesla plans to enter India and sort of, in a way, try and help India with all the tariff and FTA concerns that we have?
I don't think Elon Musk, of all people, needs to move under the shadow of President Trump. As Prime Minister Modi himself said, he's known Mr. Musk since he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. And it's a long relationship. And one thing is sure, that whatever the government does, whatever Prime Minister Modi and the government does, will be for the sector as a whole, not for an individual company. That has been the policy of the government right throughout. And I don't think that the proximity between Mr. Musk and President Trump is a factor in these discussions.
All right. And I think finally the question that everybody has on their minds is, how soon can they get access to a Tesla car in India? So given your understanding of the India ease of doing business landscape, FDI landscape, and the fact that this is none other than the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who also, among other friends, shares a good relationship with Prime Minister Modi, how soon do you think Tesla cars will be available in Indian showrooms?
It could be very quick, because there are 4 things that are required. One is the permission to set up a showroom. I think that's very simple now. It's all online and very simple, etc. The second requirement is that how soon the vehicles are looked at homologation for India. Because even if they're homologated in Europe, which are normally right-hand drive vehicles, in India, you need a homologation for a left-hand drive vehicle. A right-hand drive vehicle versus a left-hand vehicle in Europe. So, that depends on ARAI and the speed at which these vehicles are done. It is believed that some of the vehicles are already homologated, but that's that will soon come out. So it just depends on the status of the homologation process and the numbers that he can ship in here, and the service network. He's actually advertised for service heads, other things. So he like to get the service network and, of course, the charging infrastructure in place before he gets the cars here. But net, if Tesla does come in and if he focuses on charging and localization of content, it will be a plus for the EV industry in India, because it will get in technology, it will get in more number of players going forward.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that for now. Mr. Dilip Chenoy, thank you so much for taking out time this Wednesday morning and joining us here on News9.
Thanks, Scott.
And with that, it's time to slip into a quick break. But coming up on the other side, all the action on the Indian stock markets this morning. There seems to be a negative opening again. We'll get you the latest, and also the SEC's request to India in the case of Gautam and Sagar Adani. That and more on the other side of Morning Brief at 9.
मैं और आप, हम अलग कहाँ हैं?
Gill on 199.
अपनी अपनी मंजिल पर हम दोनों की नजर है और उसके लिए हम जी जान लगाकर मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी
He's out on 199.
मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
What does it take to be the greatest in the world? Focus? Composure? Wisdom? But is that all it takes? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sodium DMT Rebar. True inner strength.
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's make it one bit, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You been like it when you see we are done, hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Tiguan and Virtus. Volkswagen.
इस खेल में अब खेला होगा, हर नहले पे दहला होगा। टीम बड़ा है, स्टेज बड़ा है, पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है।
We are the Tigers.
साथ खड़ा है।
We are the Tigers.
गेम बड़ा है। Dribble like a rap, pass, 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 setting up the trap, kick it hard in the booth, chuck, there for the ball.
We are the Tigers.
Chuck there for the ball.
We are the Tigers.
Chuck there for the ball.
We are the Tigers.
Chuck there for the ball.
We are the Tigers.
Chuck there for the ball. Chuck there for the ball. Chuck there for the ball. Chuck there for the ball.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's quickly look at the mood on Dalal Street this morning. Markets have again had a negative start this morning, with the Sensex down about 0.4%, Nifty falling further, down about 0.5%, Nifty 50 still trying to somehow hold the 23,000 levels, but falling short by about 170 odd points, down to about 22,829. Massive beating coming for the mid-cap space as well, down by about 0.7%. Still struggling at 49,400 odd levels. Volatility in the Indian markets is up by about 2%, holding at about 16 levels. So bad news coming in this morning. Remember, yesterday was a day when FIIs had turned net buyers and had invested as much as 4,800 crore rupees in Indian equity markets. But the mood seems to be somber today, and why the mood is somber is primarily two factors which are driving the markets. Number one, another day and another set of tariff announcements by President Donald Trump. As much as 25% reciprocal tariffs announced on sectors including auto components and pharmaceutical. Let's look at the Nifty 50 heat map and see what is the impact on these two sectors coming in this morning. Well, of course, as expected, the auto sector is completely in the red. Mahindra & Mahindra is down by about 1.5% this morning, and all other stocks including Bajaj Auto, Maruti Suzuki in the auto stable also down. Negative news coming from Bharti Airtel as well. Bharti Airtel yesterday, remember, had decided that the Mittal family is going to do a block deal and sell about a percentage of their holding in the enterprise and raise capital to fund its British telecom deal. So markets not reacting very well to Bharti, the Mittal family exiting 1% of its stake. So Bharti Airtel is down about 0.6% this morning. Also bad news coming in for the pharma sector, because the pharma sector is one of the major exporters to the US generic drugs market, and with tariff announcements by Donald Trump as high as 25% likely to come into effect from the 2nd of April, the Indian pharma story is taking a beating, with Dr. Reddy's down almost 4% this morning. Sun Pharma down about 2.7% or so. Cipla is also down about 2.15%. And the negative news for the Adani stock also continues, because Adani Enterprises is also now facing once again request from the US Security and Exchange Commission on a bribery case of more than $269 million. We'll tell you all about that in just a minute. So like we told you, there is more trouble brewing for the Adani Group, and this time again the US Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, has requested assistance from the government of India in its investigation of Adani Group, according to a Reuters report. The SEC is probing securities fraud and a $265 million bribery scheme allegations into the Adani Group. Now, the US SEC has told a New York district court that its efforts to serve its complaint to Gautam and Sagar Adani were ongoing, and it's now seeking help from India. Now, the SEC has also requested assistance from the Ministry of Law in India under the Hague Services Convention. In 2024, federal prosecutors in Brooklyn accused Gautam Adani of bribing officials in India to convince them to buy electricity produced by Adani Green Energy, and then misleading US investors by providing reassuring information about the company's anti-corruption policy. Adani Group had called the allegations baseless and vowed to seek all possible legal recourse. This morning, Adani Enterprises taking a beating on Dalal Street. It's down by about 1.6% in early trade, trading right now at about 22.13 levels or so. And moving on, market regulator SEBI has proposed tighter measures using technology to safeguard investor and secure the Indian trading environment. Now, a SIM card binding mechanism has been proposed to enable trading applications to authenticate the user through SIM card's unique client code for demat account transactions to go through. Meanwhile, a call and trade facility to a stockbroker or an authorized person will be allowed only through centralized dedicated phone numbers of stockbrokers. SEBI says this comes at a time when device hacking and frauds of identity theft are on the rise. Comments from stakeholders are sought by March 11th before SEBI goes ahead and implements these new rules. And moving on, in a major boost to India's economic growth, Qatar has pledged to invest as much as $10 billion in the country, marking a major step in strengthening bilateral ties. The announcement came after high-level talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Qatar's Amir, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, during his two-day visit to New Delhi. Qatar praised India's efforts in creating a business-friendly environment and expressed interest in investing across key sectors, including infrastructure, technology, and food security. The two nations have also set an ambitious goal of doubling trade to $28 billion within 5 years and are likely exploring a free trade agreement as well. The MEA later said that the trade today between India and Qatar is at about $14 billion annually. The two sides also welcomed the operationalization of India's UPI, or the Unified Payment Interface, in Qatar National Bank's points of sale in Qatar, and look forward to implementing a nationwide rollout of UPI acceptance in Qatar. All right, and as markets continue to remain choppy in India on account of these two main critical decisions, one by President Donald Trump on 25% tariff and the other coming by way of SEC's probe and requesting for more information on Gautam and Sagar Adani from Indian authorities, the Indian markets are slipping further in trade this morning. Let's look at the top losers coming in trade in early morning today. We have Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, Sun Pharma, all three major pharma companies taking a beating this morning. Dr. Reddy's, the biggest loser, down about 3.5%, followed by Cipla, which is down about 2.5%, Sun Pharma down about 2.12%, and continuing on the losing streak this morning is also Adani Enterprises, which is down about 1.88% after that news update on the US SEC. Well, before we slip into a break, let's look at other global headlines making news today. Like we've been telling you, US President Donald Trump stands firm on his tariff threats and hints at 25% duty on foreign cars, semiconductor chips and pharmaceutical drugs amid trade war concerns. We'll bring you those details on the next segment. Wall Street closes slightly higher as S&P 500 hits record, Intel soars, Meta slips and gold rallies on market uncertainty. Former OpenAI CTO Meera Murati launches an AI startup, Thinking Machines Lab. She's recruiting top talent from OpenAI, Meta and Mistral to build advanced human-aligned AI systems. OpenAI considers special voting rights for its non-profit board to retain control amid Elon Musk's $97.4 billion takeover bid and investor influence from Microsoft and SoftBank. Staying with AI, Baidu in China reports a 2% revenue drop as ad slowdown weighs on earnings, but cloud AI growth helps the Chinese tech giant beat analyst expectations with $4.69 billion in quarterly revenue. And things are changing in the oil market as Brazil approves joining OPEC as it expands its oil ambitions, raising questions about its climate commitments ahead of UN summit. United States and Russia agree to work towards Ukraine peace, restore embassies and explore economic cooperation in a major shift under President Donald Trump. New Air Force One faces major delays as Boeing struggles with supply chain issues, rising costs and complex upgrades pushing delivery to 2029 or even beyond. And Johnson & Johnson faces crucial court battle over the $10 billion talc settlement plan as it seeks to resolve thousands of cancer lawsuits through bankruptcy. All these stories and more on the other side. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
मैं और आप कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
House is not in your budget, sir. Sorry.
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
What does it take to be the greatest in the world? Speed, talent, commitment. But is that all it takes? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. So do TMT Reebok, true inner strength.
If it's a cancer, then what?
It's very distressing.
Anyone can have cancer.
Mentality है कि ये बीमारी मुझे नहीं हो सकती.
There's a thing called cancer is right inside me.
सबसे पहले जो होता है ना, डर जो होता है कि now it's the end of the world.
My life went upside down.
Stigma associated with it, which is very scary.
In our country, more than 14 lakh people get diagnosed with cancer every year. Out of that, more than 9 lakhs die every year because of cancer.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Wednesday morning is another day and yet another tariff threat. US President Donald Trump is doubling down on his tariff threats, brushing aside warnings that a trade war could hurt the US economy. Trump said his administration could impose tariffs of around 25% on foreign cars and auto components within weeks. He also said that tariffs on the pharmaceutical industry are likely to come in. Addressing the media, Trump hinted higher duties on semiconductor chips and pharma drugs. The White House has repeatedly raised the possibility of tariffs since Trump returned to office last month, vowing to put America first in global trade. But so far, many of those tariffs remain on hold. Listen in to what Donald Trump had to say on this new 25% tariff.
That was it. I do want to say while I'm up here, I've been contacted by some of the biggest companies in the world. And because of what we're doing economically and through tariffs and taxes and incentives, they want to come back into the United States. And we'll be announcing various very large companies, the biggest actually. And they'll be coming back, having to do with chips and having to do also with cars and lots of other things. We're going to be announcing some very, very big momentous decisions are being made by companies all around the world, the biggest, and they want to come back into the U.S. Car plants are being canceled in other locations now because they want to build them here. And you read about a couple, not that I want to mention names or anything, but you read about a couple of big ones in Mexico just got canceled because they're going to be building them in the United States. And that's very simply because of what we're doing with respect to taxes, tariffs, and incentives. Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
All right, neighborhood of 25%, and April 2nd is the date when these final announcements are likely to be made by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, markets around the world, including in India, have taken a beating, but the Wall Street, on the other hand, saw the major US stock indices seesaw between gains and losses for most of the trading session on Tuesday. But in a last-minute push, all three managed to close in the green. A late jump in stocks changed the game, but what caused this turnaround? This report tells you all.
Wall Street's main indexes ended marginally higher on Tuesday, with the S&P 500, the biggest gainer, adding roughly a quarter percentage point to eke out a record-closing high. The three major indexes wobbled between red and green for much of the session, but it was a certain safe haven asset that caught the attention of Eric Ditton, president and managing director of the Wealth Alliance.
I think the most interesting part of today's market is gold. Gold is rocking and rolling, making new highs. When gold does well, it's just telling you one word: uncertainty. Donald Trump is a wild card. Did you know we were going to be talking about Greenland and Panama Canal? Neither did I.
Among Tuesday's stock moves, Intel jumped 16% after a report over the weekend said rivals Taiwan Semiconductor and Broadcom were considering potential deals that could split the chipmaker in two. Meta Platforms slid 2.8%, snapping its 20-session winning streak, the longest in the company's history. And Constellation Brands jumped 4% after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway on Friday disclosed a new stake in the beer and wine company. On Wednesday, investors will scrutinize the minutes from the Federal Reserve's January policy meeting for clues on the path of interest rates, especially in light of Donald Trump's potentially inflationary tariffs.
Moving on, former OpenAI Chief Technology Officer Meera Murati has launched her own startup, Thinking Machines Lab, bringing along top researchers and engineers from OpenAI, Meta, and Mistral with a focus on AI alignment, embedding human values into AI systems. Murati's new company aims to build models that go beyond today's industry standards. And she's not alone. Many former OpenAI executives have started their own ventures, raising billions of dollars. Remember, Marathi joined OpenAI in June 2018, leading the development of ChatGPT and frequently appearing alongside CEO Sam Altman as the firm's public face. Her abrupt resignation was one of a string of high-profile exits from the company as it underwent governance structure changes. Meanwhile, ChatGPT maker OpenAI is reportedly considering special voting rights for its non-profit board, a move aimed at preventing and preserving its directors' powers. This comes as OpenAI faces an unsolicited takeover bid from none other than Elon Musk. Take a look.
OpenAI is considering granting special voting rights to its non-profit board to preserve the power of its directors, as the ChatGPT maker fends off an unsolicited takeover bid from Elon Musk. That's according to the Financial Times on Tuesday. The report said the board members, including CEO Sam Altman, are weighing new governance measures as the company transitions to a traditional for-profit structure. If implemented, these special voting rights would allow the non-profit board to overrule major investors like Microsoft and SoftBank, ultimately ensuring it retains decision-making power. OpenAI did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. While no firm decisions have been made, the move could help OpenAI block future hostile takeover attempts, including from Musk, who co-founded the company with Altman but later departed. Last week, the startup rejected a $97.4 billion acquisition offer from a consortium led by the ex-owner. It said the startup is not for sale and dismissed any future bids as disingenuous. Musk's offer is his latest effort to prevent OpenAI from becoming a profit-driven company. That's as it seeks more funding to stay competitive in the artificial intelligence race.
Chinese tech giant Baidu reported a mixed earnings as the company saw a 2% drop in quarterly revenue, hit by a slowdown in its advertising business. But gains from cloud AI helped offset some of the losses. Despite the decline, Baidu beat analyst expectations, posting $4.69 billion in revenue for the December-ended quarter. Take a look.
Baidu reported a 2% drop in quarterly revenue Tuesday. The Chinese search engine giant saw its numbers dragged down by a slowdown in the advertising business, though that was offset by gains from cloud AI. The company reported revenue of $4.69 billion for the 3 months through December, above analyst projections. Baidu has faced challenges as small businesses in China have cut their advertising spending. That's due to a struggling economy and prolonged property market slump. Baidu's online marketing business outside its iQIYI streaming service was down 7%. The company offset losses in its online marketing business through the growth of its AI cloud segment, which grew by more than a quarter year over year. Baidu has ramped up its push into AI over the past years, as it tries to lower its reliance on advertising revenue from its core search engine business. Baidu was among the first to launch a ChatGPT-style chatbot 2 years ago called Ernie. It claims its current 4.0 version matches OpenAI's GPT-4. However, the Ernie large language model has struggled to gain widespread adoption due to intense competition, and it faces a strong challenge from Chinese startup DeepSeek. Baidu has recently announced plans to open source its next generation models, and the tech giant aims to offer premium chatbot services free from April.
All right, moving on to Brazil. Brazil's government has approved joining the OPEC, the influential group of oil exporting nations, indicating the country's growing role in global energy markets. The decision comes just 9 months before Brazil hosts the UN's annual climate summit. The move follows an invitation from OPEC last year, bringing Brazil into a coalition that includes 12 core members and 10 allied oil-producing nations, including Russia. However, Mines and Energy Minister Alexandre Silveira emphasized that Brazil will not be obligated to follow production quotas, calling OPEC merely a forum for discussing strategies. And in a major shift in U.S. foreign policy under President Donald Trump, Washington and Moscow have agreed to take steps towards ending the war in Ukraine and improving diplomatic ties. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made the announcement after talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The two sides broadly agreed to restore embassy staffing, establish a high-level team to support Ukraine peace talks, and explore closer economic cooperation. Rubio emphasized that while this marks the start of a dialogue, much work remains to be done. And there's been another setback for Boeing as well as for Air Force One. A senior administration official now warns the new presidential aircraft in the US may not be ready until 2029 or even later due to the ongoing supply chain issues and shifting requirements at Boeing. This comes just after the White House admitted the project has already missed its deadline. So what's causing the delay and how much longer will it take? Take a look.
Donald Trump wants a new Air Force One, but it looks like he might have a long wait before climbing on board an updated presidential jet. The current ones are getting old, but a US administration official says Boeing's project to create a new version could be delayed by years. The first of the adapted 747s was due to be delivered late last year, but Boeing has already put that back until 2027 at best. Now digital magazine Breaking Defense says it could actually be 2029 or later. The Washington official told Reuters it could even be years beyond that. Trump has been deeply engaged with the project. Back in 2016, he got Boeing to promise it wouldn't charge more than $4 billion for the new planes. But problems have mounted, leaving the aerospace giant with $2 billion in losses already. Now Boeing chief Kelly Ortberg has met with Elon Musk, who's leading Trump's bid to slash government spending. He's promised to do what he can to get the new jets in the air sooner. But Boeing leaders say the program has been beset by high costs and supply chain issues, with some suppliers going bust. It's also grappling with the complexity of the updated aircraft, as Air Force One is supposed to be a flying White House, fitted with advanced communications and defensive systems. Over the weekend, Trump toured a 747-8 similar to the one being used for the new presidential plane. The official who spoke to Reuters said it was a bigger space than the current jet, which they called relatively small. Whether Trump gets to board a new Air Force One before his second term ends, though, that looks increasingly unlikely.
US-based consumer products company Johnson & Johnson faces a crucial court battle as it pushes for approval of its $10 billion proposal to settle class action lawsuits claiming its baby powder caused ovarian cancer. The healthcare giant is trying for the third time to resolve thousands of cases through a subsidiary's bankruptcy. Remember, J&J has consistently denied any link between its talc-based products and cancer, insisting they are safe. However, previous bankruptcy filings were dismissed with courts ruling they were not filed in good faith.
Johnson & Johnson is facing a critical test over its $10 billion proposal to end litigation over allegations that its baby powder and other talc products were contaminated with asbestos and caused cancer. J&J is attempting to use a subsidiary's bankruptcy to resolve lawsuits from more than 62,000 plaintiffs. Reuters business litigation reporter Dietrich Knaut explains.
It's really a pivotal battle over whether or not bankruptcy can or should be used for this type of settlement. Johnson & Johnson is not bankrupt by any traditional measure. It has plenty of money to pay its debts. It just prefers to settle these lawsuits in bankruptcy because it can cut off future lawsuits and it can use the settlement's terms to bind people who would prefer to sue it in the court systems.
This will be the third time J&J has tried to resolve the litigation by using the subsidiary's bankruptcy. Courts rejected the two previous attempts, but this time the case is in a different bankruptcy court in Houston, Texas. Opponents of the J&J proposal argue the settlement should not bind those who do not like the terms and would prefer to take their chances in courts. But J&J argues that bankruptcy offers a faster and fairer way to put money into the hands of cancer victims.
They've said that it would take literally thousands of years to tee up one trial at a time. They've there have been over 60,000 lawsuits filed against Johnson & Johnson, and that number would only increase in the future. It's increased by 20,000 just over the last 4 years since they started pursuing a bankruptcy in the first place.
On Tuesday, an attorney for the bankrupt subsidiary, Red River Talc, suggested the third effort could succeed, saying a vote showed a broad support for its settlement proposal. Opponents of the proposal say the vote was rigged to ensure J&J's preferred outcome. The bankruptcy judge will decide the fate of the company's latest effort after what is expected to be a weeks-long court hearing.
Well, with that, it's a wrap right here on Morning Brief at 9. News continues right here on News 9, so don't go anywhere. I'll see you back tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching.
मैं और आप, हम अलग कहाँ हैं?
Gill on 199.
अपनी अपनी मंजिल पर हम दोनों की नजर है और उसके लिए हम जी जान लगाकर मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी
He's out on 199.
मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी।